Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industry.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 102 of the Empowering Industry Podcast. It's coming out on Monday, January 17th. I'm one of your hosts, Bethany Womack, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Rebecca Mechtensheimer.
Thanks, Bethany. It's great to be back for a little, celebrity
Celebrity shot. What do you call that when you need assistance making something? Charli's out feeling a little under the weather, so everyone send her some good vibes. But we have backups. We have the best backup here today to help us through the episode. And I'm happy you're here, Becca.
Thank you. Back up, Becca.
Back up, Becca. Back up, one take, Becca. That's what you are. We're here.
But yes, I am super excited to be here with you, the listener, and thank you for choosing us. And please do us a favor and leave us a rating and review. That helps us show up in the podcast platforms and helps more listeners like yourself find the show.
Like every week, we're going to cover social media, preview the news from Empowering Pumps and Equipment, and then connect you with an industry influencer. And spoilers, we have 3 for you today. So it's going to be a really fun day throughout the whole show. But before we start, Charli and I always start by saying how our week was. And so no different this week. Becca, tell us what you've been up to this week.
So this week has been a whirlwind, but it's been great because I've been really working on setting up appointments and getting things lined up for AHR Expo that's coming in the next few weeks. So if anyone's going to be at AHR Expo, please hit me up and I will make sure to stop by your booth and say hello. And I'm very excited to be able to finally see the HVACR industry in person again and get to play with some tools and see all of the awesome technology that's going to be at the show.
Tell me, where is AHR this year? Where are you going to go?
It is going to be in Las Vegas. And I even have my little pass that I got in the mail yesterday.
That's awesome.
And so, yes, I'm excited to be in Vegas. It's going to be much warmer than Pittsburgh right now that is currently freezing.
I think about you every time I'm in my, turtleneck sweater because it's, 50 degrees outside in Texas, maybe in the 40s. Okay, the heater is on in the house, but I think to myself, Becca would laugh at me so hard. I always think that. But while we're talking about you and AHR, this week, I've been doing a lot of video production of all of the videos that you've done with our partners that are going to be participating in AHR. And I just want to tell people, go and check those out on YouTube if you're going to AHR. And even if you are not going to be able to physically participate in AHR, it's a really great opportunity to see what our partners are up to. And Becca's put in a lot of time and talked to a lot of partners about all the exciting things they have coming. And I think it's a really great new benefit that we've been doing for our partners really since the pandemic started. It's just fun. I love YouTube videos, right?
Yes.
Okay, so one last thing before we get to the episode, we have our announcements section and one big announcement that everybody needs to know.
And that's going to be our digital magazine. So this is coming out later this month, so stay tuned. Next week, Bethany and Charli, when she comes back, are going to do a deep dive on the issue and all of the things that you can expect to see.
Yep. Okay, so now we are going to get social. This is where we're going to tell you something you need to know about social media in the industry, help you get through your job, help you do your job better. But we are going to start with our new segment, Manufacturing Monday.
And this week we are featuring ARI Valve Company. Didn't think I'd get choked up on that one, but here we are. So since 1988, ARI Valve Company has been the North American supplier of the ARI Armaturen, said that right, which is one of Germany's largest industrial valve producers. Really, anywhere liquids or vapors must be secured or controlled, ARI products can be found. They operate out of their warehouse in Marietta, Georgia.
Yes. If you haven't been to that part of Georgia, it's absolutely beautiful. I had an aunt that lived out there that we used to go visit as a kid. And now I feel like I'm turning into Charli a little bit, because when I hear things about these manufacturers, I'm like, I could go do a tour. Can't Empowering should send me there, right? Really great partner. We're excited to highlight them. You'll see them on our social media this week as we're highlighting hashtag Manufacturing Monday. We would just encourage you to highlight manufacturers that you know, get involved with that hashtag, and see what's going on in the industry. We do want to invite you to our virtual meetups. Our meetups for Empowering Brands is actually tomorrow, January 18th, every third Tuesday of the month. And we've moved that time from when it was previously held, and it's now at 11 a.m. Central Time. And then Empowering Women, the next meetup is Wednesday, February 9th, which is the second Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time as well. Pre-register for those, the link's in the show notes, and then you'll be sent the Zoom link and you can come introduce yourself. And we have a good time on those calls.
We do have a good time on those calls. And on that note, you can also get a shout out on this show by staying connected at Empowering Pumps on social and using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast. And for this week, I had a few shout outs that I wanted to give for both Lauren from Surumi and also Ricardo from SE10. So I got to meet with the two of them this week to talk about everything that Surumi has going on this year for their 2022 marketing. But they also are my little wedding squad. Lauren is getting married this year and Ricardo is getting married next year. And it's just so fun to be able to just continue to build that relationship with them on another level outside of, work and helping them, and, just have fun and talk about all of the wedding things, because in December, right before Christmas, I got engaged. And so I need all of the help that I can get on trying to prepare for the biggest event that I've had to plan by myself.
I am so excited for you. She sent a message out in our team Slack about it when she got engaged. I don't know. I'm just so excited for you. Congratulations. We love Steve. We're so happy that y'all are going to get to, embark on this adventure of a lifetime or whatever. But, maybe all this practice doing event planning for Empowering Women will come in handy for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I just decided we're gonna just blow out the shout outs this week because I have so many. My birthday was this past Monday. Thank you all so much for all of the people who made it really special and who wished me happy birthday on the posts. I had a couple of people that I wanted to name. Dejan McGuire, he wrote out singing happy birthday to me on one of the posts. He's one of our really active followers on Facebook for Empowering Pumps. And I just really like to take the time out of your day to type that out to someone is just so kind. Leroy, who's one of our top listeners, you're actually going to hear about him later in the show, sent me a message on LinkedIn. And then just everyone who commented, Andy Barton and Martha Barton. I just now realized the two of them rhyme when you say their names together. That's fun. And Michelle Segrest, and really so many empowering women that I met at our events. It made me feel really special, and I'm very appreciative of that. And a quick shout out to my almost birthday twin, Mallory, who's on our team, who celebrated her birthday a couple days before mine as well. So
all the birthdays.
So thank you. Truly. Now, on to our main segment for Let's Get Social. Last week, we started the series where we gave you all the stats. Actually, way too many numbers that you could ever hold in your brain about how many billions of people, literally billions of people, are on social media around the world. And this week, we're going to talk to you about what those numbers mean. What do you do with those numbers now that you have this information? What are some meaningful things you can do heading into 2022 to capitalize on all of this social media usage? So Becca, start us off with tip number one.
So tip number one is to go mobile. Last week, 99% of social media users across a network use it from a mobile device. So the average time spent on that is 2.5 hours a day. That's a lot of time that we're spending on our phones, on social
Yes.
media.
Yes.
What does this actually mean? And really, one of the things that it means is to create content so that it looks good on your mobile, and also to have vertical thumbnails so that the images look really good on your mobile view. You need to preview the content on your website on your mobile device. So it's one thing to make it look good on your browser, on your computer, but it's another for it to look good on a mobile device when people are looking at your website.
And let me tell you, there's nothing more discouraging than as a designer, you have spent hours making an image look really good, and then just to preview it on mobile to see that you got to redo it because it doesn't work, because more people are viewing it on mobile than their computer, more than likely. So
yes, absolutely. And you also need to spend time on your company's social media pages. A lot of the time, as marketers specifically, we are using the social channels when it comes to work on our computers and not necessarily on our phones. So we need to be making sure that we are looking at those pages as well, and monitoring if they need updated, if we need to be doing different sizes, pushing out for images, all of the things. And this also applies for digital advertising. And when you're creating ads, you need to make sure that you are also using ads sized for mobile devices in addition to desktop view.
So mark this timestamp and make your boss listen to it and be like, this is why I'm on my phone at work. I'm doing important work for our audience to see, and it will benefit our company for sure. Point number 2, implication number 2, is that you have to embrace change. Last year, TikTok and Instagram saw significant app download growth. TikTok is now on 1 in 5 devices, and I know, I still even think of TikTok as a young person thing, but my 50-year-old brother-in-law frequently sends me TikToks. And I'm like, how do you even know how to download an app? When did that happen? But TikTok users actually span a wide variety of people. We talked about some of those stats last week when we were talking about that. But now, so what does this mean? It means, Instagram and TikTok, neither of them are going away. They're continuing to grow. The age demographics are continuing to grow. And so it's not something we can just continue to ignore. We are seeing a lot more of our partners and companies in the industry on Instagram and seeing continued interaction there. And one of the things is TikTok, there's multiple ways to use TikToks. You can be on TikTok just to view things, to see what's going on. You can be on TikTok for help creating content. So TikTok helps you create reels, which are those short video clips that get a lot of views on Instagram. And that's a benefit of these apps, is you can use them to create new content. And bonus, it's already formatted for mobile. So you don't have to do any extra work there. And one of the big implications I see here is that we're going to see a big increase, I think, in user-generated content over the next year, because it is so readily available and easy for people to make content. So last season, we did a couple of episodes on user-generated content. Might be a good time to go back and review those. But cultivating those relationships and giving your customers and your advocates reasons to talk about you and good content to share about you is going to be key, I think, this year.
Yes, and speaking of advocates is tip number 3, which is lean on your advocates. Like I had said in tip number 1, that people spend 2.5 hours a day on social media. And because of that, they are inundated with messages from thousands of accounts. So how do you break through that noise? It may feel a bit overwhelming to think about it and have a strategy for all of these social media networks. And that's where you can lean on these advocates. A good advocate has an audience that trusts them, and they can share your story for you to their audience without really you having to do much of anything except sit back and watch it. And
provide the content, send us a good story that you want to tell, and we can share it.
Yes. And so you can refer back to our article on advocate marketing that I wrote last year, or you can just ask one of us on the empowering team, because this is what we do for our clients every single day.
Yes. And what I'm hearing is content marketing is only going to continue growing as far as importance goes. And so committing to a strong content marketing strategy is also going to be very beneficial, so you can lean on your advocates, like you mentioned. And our final tip or final implication for all of these stats is that you need to commit to social listening. Now, more than ever, you actually have to listen and respond and interact on social media. You can't just schedule your posts out and be completely done with it and not revisit it. In order to stand out in this community and create a place where people connect and not only talk to you, but talk to each other, you have to encourage that conversation. You have to be there responding to comments, following your top followers, listening to what people are actually saying about you. And it's a commitment, but it's something that's highly important and will help you stand out above the rest.
Absolutely. And, one other thing I want to note on this is that anyone that says that being effective on social media is easy, don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. Social media takes time, it takes intention, and it takes strategy. But we're here to help you along the way.
Yes. And along with that strategy and helping you, if you have any questions about social media, want us to cover anything specific in this segment, tag me. Tag at Empowering Pumps. Use that hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast. Let us know what you want to hear about, because the whole purpose of this segment is to help you and help marketers out there do their job better and help people build their personal brand and really get the most out of social media that they can. But so check out our blog with all the stats, check out our blog about these implications, and, share it on your LinkedIn. That would be wonderful. And tag us. I greatly appreciate it. Okay. Now we are going to move into the news. I'm having to remember how long sound effects last after my month off. Okay, into the news. This is where we're going to preview the news from Empowering Pumps and Equipment newsletter that'll be coming to your inbox twice a week. Sign up for that if you're not. It just keeps you in the know about what you need to know in the industry.
Yes, and to start it off is our Industry Person of the Week. So our first Industry Person of the Week of 2022 is Leroy Mathis. He is a longtime listener of the podcast. He is our number one fan, and we love him. And he is also a project engineer that is working in construction and heavy industrial manufacturing within the oil and gas sector.
Yes, Leroy's great. I loved the advice that he shared with us in this segment. He said, follow your passion, but most importantly, keep learning. You'll always be glad that you learned something that you did not do before or learned to do it better or in a different way that someone taught you. So important in this industry as things change and practices change that we can adapt. And I just think that advice is wonderful advice. Check out his profile for the Person of the Week and also add him on LinkedIn. He's very active on LinkedIn, as a huge supporter of all the people he follows, and I think a really beneficial add to your network in this industry.
100%. And so you can check out his feature on our website, and also please nominate someone that you know that you think is doing great work in the industry that you want to put a spotlight on. We know that over the holidays, a lot of people unplug, which is wonderful. But because of it, we need some more people to put that spotlight on and to give a little extra love out. So please nominate someone that you would like to see as an Industry Person of the Week.
Love it.
And next up, I am going to highlight our Sustainability Summit. So this is going to be a live virtual event on February 14th. But don't worry, it will be available on demand afterwards. So as a company, Empowering Pumps and Equipment, we are committed to working towards sustainable development goals. So we created the summit to highlight thought leaders and advocates in the industry talking about sustainability. Discussions for the day will include infrastructure, building decarbonization in the electrical grid, green solutions, digital and service solutions, pump and equipment efficiency, and diversity and inclusion. We are also offering sponsorship options for this. So if you or someone from your company would want to sponsor and speak at the summit, please let us know. You can reach out to myself or our sales guy, Vince, and we will be happy to let you know what is available and how we can get you set up.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to the summit. Lots of great topics going to be covered, and I'm always happy to learn more and how I can have a bigger impact and how our companies that we work with can do that as well. My story that I'm previewing for you today comes to us from Surumi, and it's titled Surumi's GSZ pump lowers Wisconsin quarry costs and eliminates pollution concerns. It's basically a very in-depth case study from a Wisconsin plant that replaced an existing on-site diesel-powered dewatering equipment with a high-volume electric submersible Surumi pump. The old pump, it released harmful emissions. It cost $1,600 per month to operate. And after replacing the pump with the electric submersible version, they saw energy savings of $1,000 a month. That's pretty easy to do a breakthrough cost on that, or break-even cost on that, and then it's just money made in the bank. In addition to those cost savings, they saw an increase in the level of equipment availability, future savings by eliminating the need to actually staff the refueling of the pump. And at the end of the year that it had been there, they said that the installation has been in place for over a year now, and it's working out great, even through the extremely cold winter in 2021. And it might be the quarry's first GSZ pump, but it definitely won't be the last. Really good case study. Check it all out. See all of the savings that Surumi's electric submersible pump was able to provide for this plant in Wisconsin. Okay, now we are going to move into our industry interview. We teased it at the top. I'm very excited about this different kind of interview that we have for you today, and think it's something I know I learned a ton from it, and I think you will as well. Becca, why don't you introduce our guests today?
So this week's interview is going to feature several people from the Fluid Sealing Association. It's going to have Ron Frisard. He is the Global Training Manager at AW Chesterton. Rob Coffey. He is the VP in Sales and Marketing at Proco Products. And then Phil Mahoney, which is the Director of Engineering Services at AW Chesterton. So really in this interview, oh, sorry. We got an extra Woodrow in there. He got excited for the Fluid Sealing Association.
Everyone loves them.
But really in this interview, Charli digs into, what the Fluid Sealing Association does for the industry, and also touches on PFAS and the critical work that the FSA is leading when it comes to dissecting these and advocating for the chemicals under this umbrella that are in fact not hazardous materials. An example of this is PTFE, that is critical for manufacturers in the sealing industry and really shouldn't be looped into the PFAS conversation and legislation.
Yeah. Really great interview. We hope you get a lot of information out of it. So without further delay, here's your interview.
Welcome, everybody, to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm really excited. I'm Charli. I'm the host of the podcast and also the CEO of Empowering Brands. And we own Empowering Pumps and Equipment, which is our media brand, which we love to connect, inform, and educate the industry. And today I've brought in the Fluid Sealing Association, and it's just a really great time to be with you guys. Anytime I get to be with you in person is awesome. But since we know each other, we can jump on a Zoom and have a great time, both learning from each other and just, saying, hey. So let's start there. Let's introduce yourself for our audience. I'll start with Ron.
Oh, hello, Charli. My name is Ron Frisard. I am the Global Training Manager here at the AW Chesterton Company. I've been dealing with fluid sealing for over 30 years here at Chesterton. I've also been an active member of the Fluid Sealing Association, which is how I got to meet all these fine people, including you, Charli. I am currently the chairman of the gasketing division, and I was a past chairman of the packing division. So that is who I am.
Awesome. Robert Coffey.
Hi, everyone. Rob Coffey with Proco Products, Vice President of Sales and Marketing. been in the industry, I don't know, 40 years now, and a Fluid Sealing Association member since about 2007. Past president of the Fluid Sealing Association, just ended my term after 3.5 years. So glad to be here.
Thank you for that. And that extra on your term there, Rob. Phil, go ahead.
I'm Phil Mahoney. I'm the Director of Engineering Services for Chesterton, based up here in Groveland, Massachusetts. Like Ron, I've been doing this for 30 plus years in the sealing industry, 30 something. I'll just leave it at that. I've been focusing mostly on stationary sealing, valves, gaskets, things like that. Also past president of the FSA, long-term member, participating since I want to say 2002 or 2003. So it's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Wonderful. So as y'all are introducing yourself, it has me wonder, what is the FSA? Who are you? Who is the FSA? Rob, you want to take that one?
Sure. The Fluid Sealing Association is an international trade association founded in 1933. Member companies produce and market a wide range of fluid sealing devices targeted for the industrial market. The Fluid Sealing Association membership includes a number of companies in Europe, Central and South America, but is most heavily concentrated here in North America. FSA members, or Fluid Sealing Association members, account for the majority of the manufacturing capacity for fluid sealing and containment devices in the Americas. So when we talk about sealing devices, we look at mechanical seals for pumps, packings for valves, gaskets to seal flanges, expansion joints to provide flexibility in systems. And all these products help maintain reliability in plants, maintain safety, and also aids in the reduction of emissions and is an environmental benefit.
Yeah, I think I've learned so much about this industry by being in your presence, all of you, and being at the FSA meetings, the Fluid Sealing Association meetings. And I think when we look at how you are involved in all industries across the board, I think it's really important that we have you on. And one of the reasons is because there's such a conversation about PFAS, and I really want to hear from the FSA what it is, what we are using, what are we, how are we going to adapt to this conversation from the FSA's point of view? Let's talk about that. Let's go there and talk about kind of what is this PFAS and what is the fluid sealing devices and containment devices? What are they using out there?
Charli, I think I would start with this. What I've seen in my 30 years is, fluid sealing manufacturers have really changed the game for when we talk about climate change and other words too, by keeping things sealed, keeping chemicals inside of containment, keeping from having, oil, major environmental disasters because of the technology changes that has happened in sealing devices. One example, like Phil was mentioned, regarding emissions, the work that our partner companies that are in the Fluid Sealing Association have gone from when I started 30 years ago at 10,000 parts per million, all the way down to 100 and even 50 parts per million. So this type of change has happened through a lot of people's efforts, amazing people that work for the industry in fluid sealing, and has saved a tremendous amount of emissions. I joke, and I think I've mentioned this to Phil, I joke when we had that climate change summit in Edinburgh, they should have had a standing ovation for all of the fluid sealing providers, because one of those lower emission numbers have come from valve sealing technology that a lot of people have put their heart into for creating this new technology. But I digress. That is kind of maybe a little over the top, but it is true. We are, as Rob says, a public good. When it comes to PFAS, there's a lot of things going on with hearing a term that then people just think everything is around it. And what we've been really pushing is that, all PFAS chemicals are not the same. And especially when we start talking about PTFE and fluorocarbons that are used in like O-rings and in sealing device range, especially how much of a success they've been for industry. So
yeah, I know that there's a lot there. There's, so many questions I have around PTFE and why it's important, how it's used in the industry. Can we kind of go into that? Because I know that's a lot of what we work with in and I say we, the Fluid Sealing Association. So let's go into what is important. Why it's
recap the issue with the PFAS issue. I was just going to take a step back. I think the bigger picture, kind of take a step back from what Ron was saying. The PFAS, there's a lot of regulatory concern these days about what's called PFAS chemicals, right? So they're perfluorooctanoic acid is one of them. Perfluorooctane sulfonic acid is another one. There's 9,000 different versions of PFAS chemicals, right? And so the problem is that, there are known issues with some of those chemicals. But what we're seeing now is some regulatory activities, both at the state level and the federal level, to regulate PFAS chemicals. And like I said, there's 9,000 different versions of those chemicals. And the issue we have is it's an overarching umbrella that covers so many different chemicals. The challenge there is there's a number of the chemicals that are under that PFAS umbrella are not hazardous materials, right? And that to bolster what you were saying, Charlie, PTFE is one of those. That's a material that's ubiquitous in our sealing industry. It's inert. It's used in. We were having just some discussions with the Senate staffers about our position from the FSA on PFAS chemicals, and then specifically PTFE and other fluoropolymers that are in our sealing industry. Then PTFE being one of the most important because it is a unique material that is irreplaceable in our industry. It is inert. It doesn't react with virtually any chemicals. It has a low coefficient of friction. One of the lowest coefficient of frictions of any material that's used in our industry. It can handle high temperature, and it's also one of the best sealing devices out there from a sealing material standpoint, both flanges and gasketing and valve sealing. So the big issue we have there is it's so ubiquitous, and it's not just in the sealing industry. If you look in the manufacturing of microchips, PTFE is used in there. Aircraft landing gear has PTFE seals in it, right? I can give you a million other applications. The point being is PTFE is one of those materials that's ubiquitous.
Yeah. If you look back with like a big chemical that like a lot of people had a lot of uses for example, let's say dioxin. If you look back where like in the 50s, people were using this and then we found out to be a major health crisis for that product. The industry changed with coming out with new chemicals automatically to get away from that. In our regard, with the materials that Phil just said, where PTFE is used, there is no, as Phil said, there's been no one has come out. It's been tested in human subjects for many, many years, and there are no health with the actual material PTFE. So, but it's under that umbrella where there are a few that have had some serious discussions about, but we're kind of all grouped into like this one term that kind of then pulls PTFE to being considered some of this mysterious, terrible things. The example I use all the time is dental floss. If, it's been tested on humans, I floss with PTFE on a daily amount, and I have no, it's been tested in humans for many years. So there's surely some studies in some of these far end materials that are looped under PFAS. And our main message that Phyllis says too, that we've trying to scream from the top of the tower here is that, all PFASs are not the same, and especially PTFE needs to be rated on its own merits and not grouped together. We hear all the time. Go ahead, Rob.
And what's really important to understand for industry is with PTFE particularly, there really is no replacement for PTFE at this time. So that means that if we ban PTFE in this PFAS legislation, where they want to do a class ban, there's no alternative. So now industry has the problem with potential health hazards from leaky valves, pumps, expansion joints, and not to mention safety, and also environmental detriment. So, having a blanket ban of all PFAS chemicals is something that the Fluid Sealing Association has, put a flag up and said, hey, we can't have this, and these are the reasons why. And I believe that in the time that we have met with certain senatorial offices to discuss this matter, I think we've opened some eyes to say, maybe we need to take a closer look at, items such as PTFE.
Yeah, I think you made a great point of there's nothing to replace this. And an organization that cares about environmental concerns, you'll have always been sealing things and harsh chemicals and making sure that they're not getting out into the world, being kind of one of your top conversations that I've listened to, making sure that we're not anything that leaks, we want to take care of it, harmful emissions and things that we can actually control. There's some emissions that we can't control as manufacturers, but there's some that maybe we can and learn different processes. So I've always enjoyed that aspect of the Fluid Sealing Association and how they care for the environment. So thinking about that in a different way, we do care about PFAS and want to pay attention and really find a solution. But with that and the number of chemicals that are being put into this one class, we got to break that down and look at, is there a greater good to keep this PTFE because it's saving us from something else? I mean, as just a citizen here thinking about that, what are we sealing that would be worse for one? But I love that the Fluid Sealing Association, I'll quit saying the FSA in a little while, but the Fluid Sealing Association is active. And, Phil, we went one time to the EPA on the emission side, and that was such an eye-opening experience to know that they needed our help. They needed to hear from us as an association. Y'all are doing that. Y'all are reaching out. Y'all have the information about these technologies that can help or that do help our industry. And in this case, that there's not another way to do it currently. Do you want to talk to that just about what the Fluid Sealing Station is doing right now?
Yeah, I would say, because one thought I had was when you mentioned what Ron was mentioning earlier, we're trying to make sure we advocate to multiple, regulators, legislators, about our position on this, which is not that we should be ignoring PFAS. That's not the issue. The issue is that PTFE is considered a PFAS under this giant overarching umbrella, but it's not the same as PFOA or PFOS, which is a big focus by the EPA in drinking water. Ron mentioned too, we were talking about sealing. PTFE seals have basically been advocated or tested to prove that they can seal to less than 10 parts per million. Right now, the EPA requirements, like Ron said, years ago, there were 10,000 parts per million of greenhouse gas emissions. Now they're 500, and some consent decrees are saying 100. PTFE seals can seal less than 10. And the point being is, if we start saying that PTFE is a sealing device, which, as Ron has mentioned before, is completely safe as an end-use material, we're going to backslide on our greenhouse gas emissions requirements, right? If you don't allow the use of PTFE, then we're going to start emitting more greenhouse gases. And that's kind of the thing we're trying to explain to legislators, regulators, et cetera, to kind of give them the 4-in-1 on what our products do, what their benefit is, why there's no alternatives for them. And the fact is, the sealing devices that our members make are articles, right? Where they're finished parts that are in a physical form. They're not added to water supplies, et cetera, et cetera. We're not, that's not how we use them. So the key for us is to advocate and educate as many people. Like you said, Charlie, we went to the EPA to tell them what our products do. So when they write regulations, they understand what it is we do, what we manufacture, what their benefit is overall, right? And that's the key thing is, without us doing that as subject matter experts, then sometimes you can find that regulations or legislation are out there that kind of miss the forest for the trees, so to speak. And our goal is just to make sure that everyone knows what we do and how important it is, and to make sure that we don't, as my grandmother would say, cut your nose off to spite your face.
What I think is interesting in this story too is this issue of when this issue was happening, we looked to the left and looked to the right, and we realized that our voice needed to be heard because of how much it's used. And as I said before, we're really almost like standing up for industry here about, we're with end users all the time. Think about all the work you've done, Charli, with empowering brands. You connect with the end user all the time, right? And in many industries. And we're really realizing that at this time, something that we know is a safe product as a finished form would really cause major hardship. As we said, there really is no replacement for a product that is working without any health issues anyways. So it's just it's for us, we thought that someone needed to stand up, and that's what we've done. And that's one of our main principles, as Rob said before, is to be that connection, to explain and represent industry and represent the technology advantages that we have with something like this in sealing devices. And I once again, you guys did the EPA thing. It was my first time talking to senators and stuff. And you know what, when we get through all this fog of media, what you actually find in government at the end is we talked to some staffers who really were very knowledgeable, and they listened to us like they listened to you guys about the emissions, and they really wanted to hear from many factions about the impact on something like this, and they took our materials and hopefully will help that. The problem we're having sometimes is that even not just from the federal government, from even on the states level, there are people who are making this knee-jerk reaction. And I sometimes think that it's almost laziness is probably the wrong word, but it's easier just to use the catchphrase PFAS instead of breaking it down to all the chemicals. And these are the type of things that they don't really understand, where PTFE is used all the place. I mean, I think as Phil put it a minute or two ago, there are people who try to live a day, without using plastic or something. Trying to live a day in your town without PTFE, there would be massive emissions. There'd be leaks all over the place. I mean, there are pipelines that use PTFE coated pipes to hold in serious acids. I mean, it is the most chemical resistant material on the planet. So to just say that to go away is really someone who's not looking at all the science that we think is out there. So,
and I would add one thing. Your podcast today, we have been standing up and raised the flag with regard to this PFAS and PTFE issue. When we go out and speak, I think end users, the distributors of our products, they have to be involved too. And I don't know that they really understand what's coming down. And so by having this podcast today, hopefully people will see that this is a real issue that is going to affect industry if we don't do something at the governmental level. And it's not just here, it's in Europe. And these people are a little bit more advanced in Europe right now with some of their legislation. So, we're trying to get the word out as best as possible. So we really appreciate you having us on today. I think this is a really important topic, and hopefully industry is going to see that what we're doing is good.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all too, because, I have to reach out to bring in voices to, be the voice of the industry through Empowering Industry podcasts, what we try to do and talk about, all of the things that matter. And I think when you dive in deep, people just don't know what manufacturing does every day and how it affects their lives. We say all the time, pumps are vital to life. You could put in so many things, water, chemicals into that. It's vital to how we live every day. And we have to really think about that when we go forward and have these conversations and make a plan together. I was just talking on the podcast with WEF's new president, and he's from Colorado, and he has a really great mindset where you are bringing in, water and industry into the same place. And we have to have a conversation and make sure that, we protect this beautiful area, which is where he's from, but also that we're able to live there. And so I think that these things are really important, and that we have these discussions with thought leaders like yourselves and industry and our regulators, and make sure that all of the information is out there before we just run to save the world without knowing what that actually is. Ron, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, no, I'm all in with that. I think, as we were just saying, we're getting that common ground, and that what we're doing and the things that we're sealing is really an environmental good. And as you started to say, when you first came to the Fluid Sealing Association, I mean, that was one thing that you just were, oh, I thought this was just a bunch of people, but we were all, the type of rallying we can have on trying to make the world better, especially environmentally, for sure. And but really the issue with PFAS is that we just think that there's a lot of confusion, and we're out there trying to just be very level-headed and get a voice of what it could actually be in a world. And once again, there have been times where things, no one did stand up and make a call, and next thing you know, you're like, there were technical scientific reasons that something shouldn't have been legislated that way. So and I know Rob and I've had this conversation before too. At the end of the day, government's supposed to be listening to groups like us, because we have to find those channels, and luckily, the FSA has had, as I said, a great history of our legislative interactions. So we have a whole team, and Lisa, who couldn't make today, she's been doing a great job for us down there in DC, and it keeps, it makes sure that our voice is being heard.
Yes, Lisa Chilio, who is running our government affairs group, which is one of the most fascinating meetings to attend, in my opinion. Sorry to everyone else, but it's because you really do combine everything that we're working on and can see how it affects our world. So, Phil, I'll let you, kind of end off. Everybody want to say one more thing, but do you want to add anything else before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say these FSA activity, I agree with you. This activity is very interesting. I find it fascinating. I love doing it. To bolster the whole conversation about the FSA and what we do to support industry, I think, this PFAS legislation, the FSA does agree there's certain components of it that are valid. Like, right, we're all about clean water as well. Mm-hmm. It's just making sure that we deal with clean water, but we don't throw like PTFE, an inert, non-harmful PFAS chemical, under the same umbrella as material like PFOA that ends up in your drinking water, right? So the FSA is all about a science-based approach to regulating the harmful chemicals and not the non-harmful chemicals, right? And I think the activity of just educating and having conversations with as many people as possible to get that point out there is obviously definitely worth doing. But we're all about getting the message out there to as many people as possible, and I appreciate the opportunity to do it today.
Well, thank you all for being here. We will definitely share this across our networks. If people are looking for ways to get involved, I would say fluidsealing.com is the web address. And, contact any of us. I'll definitely put some contact information in the show notes, but get involved, reach out, let's have a conversation. If you don't agree, I'd have them on the podcast
Love
and
to.
listen as well. But let's talk about it. Let's find the solution. And I do believe that industry needs to be in this conversation. So I thank y'all for leading the way.
Yes. Thanks again,
Thanks, Charli.
Charli, for your help.
Yeah, yeah.
This is exactly, we're trying to get that message out there. And one more plug here. We have a brand new website, fluidsealing.com, and there's a whole section on there. It has our main letter that we've put to Congress on there, giving all of our points. And surely reach out to any of us, and we would love to have anyone to have a discussion about it. And once again, the Fluid Sealing Association, we're always looking if there are new companies, whatever, that would love to join, and they can surely get a hold of any of us, and we would love to have anyone be added. So thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
And we're back. Charli, thank you so much for meeting with the Fluid Sealing Association, having them on the show, and allowing them to educate me and Becca and all of our listeners that are listening to these topics. A couple things that stood out to me is really the story that all of these Fluid Sealing Association companies can really push, saying how much they've affected climate change by helping to limit emissions. It's not something that I necessarily tie to them a whole lot, and thinking about the positive impact that we can have on emissions, and then really strategically thinking through how we can get involved with legislation and advocating for what we need in this industry, and not letting people use fear to dictate where legislation is going. If we can really understand, I think, what some of these PFAS things are and how they're different, and which ones are okay to use and continue using, and the impacts if we stop, and how that would drastically impact climate change because the emissions would go through the roof again. Just big macro picture things that I hadn't really thought about that I thought was really educational.
Absolutely. And, you can definitely learn more about that on their website, and then also on their social channels, where they do talk pretty frequently about PFAs and educating people about them.
I love it.
And so that brings us to the end of the show. So thank you so much for listening.
Yes. And thank you, Becca, so much for being here and filling in your wonderful backup one take, Becca. We love to have you. And everyone that's listening, do us a favor, leave a rating and review. Let Becca know you were happy that she's here. And let us know what your favorite part of the show was, what you took away from it, what you learned. We love to hear from you.
And you can always reach out to us through social at Empowering Pumps and using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast, or you can email us at podcast@empoweringpumps.com.
And we'll be back next Monday with a new episode.
So until then, be empowering.
Yeah. Where's Woodrow?
He's snuggled in his blanket.
Love him.
Noisy today.